Some of the folks in the room here represent you in the community as budget advocates. And every week they go to City Hall and they meet with a different department. There's 40 plus departments to meet with. And Rusty, I think Charles is a budget advocate, and they focus in on and they make some recommendations to the mayor, the city council, and it's just, who else? Laura? Oh, hi. Another budget advocate. Advocating on our behalf, because our money goes as business operators, as employers, as employees, as homeowners. Money's going to the city, to the county, to the state, to the federal government. We just want it to come back to the neighborhood. And that budget's a $4 billion budget. General budget, is that right? That's right. $7 billion big budget, $4 billion general budget. The bottom line is it's a big one, and this is the biggest year, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's gotten bigger every year, and yet the stuff coming back, by stuff I mean stuff. Our stuff, right? City services. It gets smaller, it seems. So, why are you qualified to represent us? Because the biggest thing you're going to have to grapple with is this huge budget. We can talk about sort of fun restaurants and fun clubs and fun places to walk. But the bottom line is that's a huge budget that we all have to grapple with and to wrangle that under control and to bring it home. And we're projecting hundreds of millions of dollars of shortfall this coming year. As I understand, am I correct, Neil? 16 or 16? 216. A lot of money. So tell us why you're qualified, tell us what you'll do about it, and tell us how you represent us. And we'll start with Mr. Sabo.
This is actually the most critical issue facing the council on an ongoing basis. And it's also why it is absolutely critical for you to elect leaders to the city council who understand how the city budget works, who understand how the programs work. Because if not, we're going to rely on staff, and the easiest thing that staff do, they make recommendations to cut pothole filling, to cut programs at parks. When I was promoted to deputy mayor, we were facing a $500 million deficit in the current year, $1 billion the following year. It was the weight of the city. The city was on the edge of financial disaster. And I had to recruit a budget team, put together a budget. I had to negotiate concessions with every single labor union in the city, and I was able to do it. I pushed them further than they ever thought they'd go. They gave back more than they ever thought that they would give back. They doubled their contributions to pensions and to health care, and consequently, we're almost out of, we did not go bankrupt, and we're almost back to financial sound footing.
Thank you. Mr. Choi?
I think managing budgets is a matter of priorities. What do you think is important? What do you think are the core city services? As a Public Works Commissioner, I manage one of the largest departments in the city, the Department of Public Works. It's really responsible for the vast majority of the quality of life issues that you care about every day. Your streets, your trees, your sidewalks, your lights, your trash. All these things are things that fell into this department. What I saw as a commissioner was a city council that didn't fund these services. I was in a position where we actually had dollars set aside to put people to work filling potholes, put people to work trimming trees. But what happened was we were stopped by a bureaucratic process that was, while it was responsible at the time when we were really teetering on the edge of bankruptcy, is still holding up workers that could actually be out filling potholes and doing that work. We haven't funded tree trimming in the last several years in the city. We haven't had any sort of funding or plan for sidewalks in the city. That's a lack of priority, and I think those are the issues that matter. Those are the city services that you want and expect from our city, and we haven't been delivering them. That's why I'm running for the city council, because I think that's where our dollars should go, in addition to public safety. That's where our focus should be. That's where our research should go.
Thank you. Jerry Campo.
So at the Sabab Family Foundation, I manage a $200 million fund, and it's on large-scale nonprofit projects. So I work with nonprofits, and I work with our budget to make sure if we're constructing something that is going smoothly, that it is efficient, dollars are being spent correctly, and I have fought with nonprofits when their money is not managed correctly. So I believe that skill set is going to be vital for when we're dealing with the budget at City Hall. And I think it's all about priorities. And I want to work closely with the City Controller's Office to see where we can save and where we can cut, and making sure that there's extra dollars that will go into city services. And then also, we need to collect the debt that is owed to us. And I think if you look at the chief administrator's office's report, there are millions of dollars there, and we need to be efficient enough to collect them and make sure that that money goes back into city services, cutting trees, making sure sidewalks are repaired. Thank you.
Mr. Harrelson.
I don't believe that because I happen to work in the city for 10 years or however long, that I can't control the budget. I believe that running a small business, you have to learn to live within your means. You have to know when to say no when you don't have any money for the programs anymore, and you have to know how to allocate the use of the funds that you have in a responsible way. And I believe that transferring the debt of our city onto the citizens through parking fees or increasing the sales tax is just putting a greater burden on the citizens, and the city is not taking responsibility for the things that they're supposed to be doing. What I would push for as a city council person would be for across-the-board sacrifice from the city to have departments contribute to their own health plans, to make cuts within their own programs, and just as the city likes to ask the community to make sacrifices, the city needs to make the very same equal sacrifices as well.
Thank you. Mr. Pugin.
Same thing, government is about accountability. At some point, we come to a real sort of position of how are we going to manage this, the deficits and so forth, are we going to tax or not? It's very important. I truly believe that we need to sit around, whether it's the labor union that has 30% stake in the city, whether it's the private sector that's trying to get incentives, they'll have to come to a conclusion that we need to think in real terms. Not in specific terms who has interest or not. We need to figure out a way that budget will not be impacted to cut quality of life issues, but also at the same time to apply what the business world does. And they do it in real terms, in short terms, so that way we can have a long-term sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mack.
The budget for the city is just like a budget at your home. You have X amount in the checkbook, and you prioritize what you're going to get. And for us, obviously, a budget has to start with what is essential. Essential to the very, essential to our city. It's going to be public safety. It's going to be transportation, our ability to move around, and also our sanitation. Those are some of the examples of core essential services that have to be provided. Then the next priority is going to be what's going to help our economy. Those things that the city can do, programs that are going to help our economic vitality and help you as individuals prosper and support your family. And as we look at it, I used to have a $500 million budget, and we had to make some very difficult decisions in the fire department of what services we were going to provide. And that's the formula we did. What is the essential services that we need to begin with, and then move from there, just like you.
Thank you. Mr. President.
Yes, you need a council member that's going to go to City Hall and be able to say no. These decisions have already been made. Follow the money. Look at the contributors of my opponents. The decision has already been made. You're going to find out what services are going to be cut, what special interest is going to be taken care of. Follow the money. I'm going to be able, my campaign, my donors are people that I've known since kindergarten and high school. These are local folks. And guess what? I'm going to go to City Hall and advocate for more street resurfacing, fixing for sidewalks, tree trimming, and it makes a big difference of who your donors are. Follow the money. That will make a big difference.
Thank you. Mr. O'Farrell.
I agree completely with Robert, and I urge you to look at all the donations made to both my campaign and those of my opponents. You will find special interest money active at work, and that will not enable some of my opponents to make independent, tough decisions that are going to be required over the next couple of years. We're in a world of hurt, and within the 2 fiscal cycles, the pension costs are going to cost 25% of the city budget. That's a real problem, and I will deal with that independently. Also, you will find, when you take a look at the campaign donations, that half of all of my funding has come from within the district. By far and away, more donations, both from inside the district and as a percentage, than any of my opponents, and that is something that is very, very important. We are very, very far from being on solid footing. Do not kid yourselves.
You need strong decision makers to represent you at City Hall.
Thank you.
Experience matters, and yes, indeed, those folks who have been in the inside know how it works. You be the judge of how it has worked so far. Secondly, we live in the area of the United States with the highest number of higher education institutions. The largest number of PhDs in the country is right here in LA. And I would imagine that there's folks who are willing to give their time to come in and talk a little bit about how we can address this. There's a report that the city actually commissioned a few years ago where, and the unions were part of this as well, actually the union's position in terms of the pensions argument and how to address, the budget deficit is, let's put to work, let's actually put into practice that plan that we designed to bring $400 million of revenue. We have to collect better, but most importantly, we need decency and transparency. Be the judge of who you can trust. That's who you have to vote for.
Thank you. Mr. Post?
Being a political junkie, one of my favorite films as a child was this movie called Dave, right, where this guy, Kevin Kline, was a regular guy, and he looked like the president, so they brought him in to be the president, and he brought his buddy over who was an accountant, and they said, we got to balance this budget. So they stayed up all night, and they balanced the budget. Of course, I'm simplifying how it works, but I think what we need is that kind of common sense, checks and balances, where you go in, you say, what are we using too much of? What are we spending too much money on? Like I said earlier, the $10 million sidewalk study. And we need to have more transparency. And that's why I propose that we have a website that goes through and shows every expense of the entire city, every deal that's being made. You can follow it, and we have the technology, we just need to use it. And you can follow it just like a computer tape. You can see exactly what's going on in the city. I think if we hold City Hall accountable, you're going to see a savings of money.
Mr. Schaefer?
Thank you. I had lunch a couple weeks ago with former Mayor Reardon, and he has written and spoken about the city that's going bankrupt. We're one of the worst managed cities in America. I want to keep LA alive and well. I want to keep Emil at his job at the fire department. All these guys who brag about having worked for the city councilman and worked for the mayor, shame on them. Those are the guys that are part of the problem. You need somebody who has never worked in City Hall like me. I've been in San Diego, city prosecutor, city councilman, but that's a more successful city than we are here. What's my background for? Well, the doctor, we all have doctorate degrees here, the three of us. I have a doctor of law from Georgetown. I have a business management degree from Haas School of Business at Berkeley. I studied engineering at Notre Dame. I studied tax law at USC. I've run multi-million-dollar businesses in my family, his own hotel, motel, shopping center. And when I was in high school, I was in junior achievement. So in the very beginning, I know how to
Mr. Segal?
First and foremost, I think I'm the only one on this panel who actually served as a budget advocate. A couple of years ago, I was very honored to be one of 27 neighborhood council members out of the 1,500 across the city who worked and fought for neighborhoods. With all due respect to Matthew, we rewrote the mayor's budget survey to make sure that it was adequate and it met the needs of the community. We had the opportunity to work hard to make sure that as neighborhood council budget advocates, we let the mayor and the departments know what was important to the neighborhood. I was very proud to work with people like Charles and others who were part of that group to make sure that we put in a statement on behalf of the neighborhood council that said that we support any budget that protects city core services like public safety, street repair, and so forth. And so that's the kind of leadership that I want to bring to the city council, someone that's independent, that's willing to stand up for neighborhoods, like I did as a member of the budget advocates. Thank you.
Thank you very much.